The things that I've learned as a referee and in life, or have helped me in life and in business, and the things, some of the things that I learned in business also turn around and I can apply in soccer. And again, to this day, I mean, I hope I get to stay in the league for a while. Each year we take multiple fitness tests and have to pass assessments and all these other things, and make sure that the people up top are happy with you doing your job. But hopefully I get to stick around for a while. So, in any case, that's my story, all right, as far as that goes. I've done World Cup qualifying in Mexico, Guatemala. I'll tell you the Guatemala story real quick. Honduras, Canada, and Costa Rica.
It's on the resume if you want to read it.
Yeah, I know. And in a couple of weeks, Manu's coming over on a tour, and I'm doing Manu in Chicago, Manu and Chicago in Chicago. So that'll be fun. In Guatemala, have you guys ever seen the commercial, the Gatorade commercial? Do you remember it? Where the U.S. soccer team's going into the stadium somewhere in Central America, and the ceiling is shaking. Do you remember that commercial? I'm getting some nods. Okay, that's real. That's really real. So we go to Guatemala, and I've been there once before for an Olympic qualifier. And Guatemala is not the safest country in the world. Right? So it's not totally unsafe, but it's not the safest country. When we travel as FIFA referees outside the country, we get on a plane, we're in a suit. Usually it doesn't say anything about who you are, because they know as soon as you get off the plane anyway. You're the biggest white guy in the country, you know? I'm sorry, it works that way. So but when we get off the plane and we go through security, we have our own security. Okay, so when we go through customs and immigration, we have our own security. From the time we get into the country until the time we leave. Yes, with guns. Some of them have guns on their pockets. Some of them are carrying M16s. The entire time you're there. Yeah, it's a little different in Central America. So, but great trips and great people in general. Okay, so we're in Guatemala for a World Cup qualifier. Brian Hall, who was responsible for U.S. soccer with the referees last year and a few years before that. Now he's with CONCACAF. Brian was the referee for this game. It was the last day of World Cup qualifying for the 2006 World Cup. And Craig Lowry was the other assistant referee, and Michael Kennedy, the fourth official was from Mexico. I think because he spoke Spanish, and it was Guatemala against Costa Rica. Right? Huge rivalry. And oh, by the way, the winner goes to the World Cup. Okay, so, no pressure. So the day before, we go to the stadium. And we get into the stadium, there's no traffic, we pull in, you know, there's still security to get in, and we walk in and we see the locker rooms, and there's nothing special. We walk out into the field, there's a nice track around the stadium, and there's this fence, right, all the way around the stadium. And in Europe, you don't have this anymore. You used to, but you don't have it. But in Central and Latin America, even South America, you have a fence. And they told us this nice little story, and this is all gamesmanship. So you guys go through gamesmanship, right? You have a coach who says something to you, or a player say things to you on the field that are intended to get you to maybe sway things their way. Okay, so we're in Guatemala, and we walk onto the field to do our stadium check before the game. And here's this fence. And the guy comes over and he says, do you see the fence? He says, well, yeah, you know, the stadium looks really nice. It's been newly painted. Everybody's happy here. Guatemala can go to the World Cup if they win tomorrow night. You know, but what's the deal with the fence? And it's there anyway. We know it's going to be there. He says, well, you see the section on the bottom that's 12 feet tall? The bottom, it's a tall fence. There's two sections though. The 12-foot section is the old section. And he says, you see there's a newer section on top. Yeah. He says, well, they had to add another 6 feet of fence. Well, why is that? He says, because the first 12 feet didn't stop people from coming over. Okay. So now, added pressure. You do games here do you do here Carpenter outside? Okay. So I think I refereed at this complex when I was 15 at the Dallas Cup. Maybe I was 18, I don't remember. But, in any case, it's an open complex, so you have parents around, you have virtually no security, and really, I don't know how you do it because I have security everywhere I go. So, but in your case, you're out there and it's pretty wide open. Switch to a stadium in the middle of Central America on the last day of qualifying, where if they win, they can go to the World Cup. And they tell you a story that they added 6 feet of fence to keep people from coming over because the first 12 feet couldn't keep them there. Oh boy. I mean, you're talking about some pressure. The stadium, by the way, the next night takes us 3 hours to get to this. No, that's not true. We had to leave 3 hours ahead. It's only a 10-minute drive from the hotel. We had to leave 3 hours before. We have to be there an hour and a half before. We thought, an hour and a half early. It's a 10-minute drive. Traffic, we come for traffic that time in the evening. Okay, fine. Until you start to get closer to the stadium. And then there's more and more traffic because they're trying to get to the stadium. Remember, this is 3 hours ahead. And eventually you get to a point where you're driving through people because the police escort has to move them because there are so many people there. And oh, by the way, the stadium's already full. 30,000 people. There's 20,000 outside. Right? More pressure. So these are the types of things that we deal with, and then you go into you get into the locker room finally, and back to that whole banging thing. Get into the locker room and you look up at the ceiling and it looks a little bit like this, and it's literally shaking. 3 hours before the game. And now you have to get focused and concentrated and really start to drive in on what you're supposed to do for that game and eliminate all the things on the outside, like parents, like players who you have no idea why they're upset, but they're upset. You have to eliminate all these things. But in any case, that's kind of my story. I like that story from Guatemala. There's plenty of other stories we can talk about as we go, but I want to also, it actually took a long time.
You're fine.
I want to get into a little bit about this decision and talk about offside because I'm an assistant referee, not a referee. Okay, I think I've done one college, maybe 2 college middles, and those are the only 2 middles I've done in the last, I don't know, 12 years, something like that. So 12 years ago, U.S. Soccer came to me and said, hey, we think that you can get on the international panel as a FIFA assistant referee if you go on the line, okay, in 2 years. But as a referee, maybe into the league in a few years, and if after that you make it onto the FIFA panel, then great. I thought this is great. I can go run a line for 90 minutes anywhere in the world if they'll send me, So, but in any case, this game was in 2005. It's a playoff game, so a lot of pressure. It's a semifinal, actually, in MLS between New England and Chicago.
Those of you over here may want to come over here so you can kind of see it.
Sorry.
It's a little bit hard to see.
Just stand in the back.
Just stand in the back. You need to watch it carefully.
Hold on real quick. Just leave that. So the point in this, I am the assistant referee in this. That's not the point. The point is that we get a chance to talk about the elements of what happened. Okay, U.S. Soccer wrote a position paper after this about why this was offside and so on and so forth. It actually meets all of the criteria of what offside is. Okay, so everybody here knows what offside is, I hope. Yeah, and it's a really difficult decision. In fact, it's so difficult that the referees who referee in MLS, to a person, will tell you that they never want to be an assistant referee. And I can tell you that most of us will tell you we don't want to be a referee either. So they're very specialized jobs. Okay? So, and whether it's amateur or professional, youth or seniors, recreation or competitive, it doesn't really matter. The job is the same. And a lot of people go in, I'm sorry, St. Louis has a great history for soccer, but we also have a lot of people in St. Louis as referees who decide that being an assistant referee is secondary. They don't like it, okay? Because it's not as important as being a referee. And that is so wrong, and I'll tell you why. As a referee, you can make mistakes. People live with them, okay? As an assistant referee, you take away goals if you're wrong. So your concentration has to be perfect all the time. And every game that you do, those players are coming out, it's probably their only game of the day. You need to do 3 or 4 or however many you do. But it's probably their only game, so it's important to them. So you have to focus. It's a little bit different scenario here. This is a semifinal. 92nd minute of the game. Okay, 1-0 to New England at home in New England. There's 20,000 people in the stadium. But remember, at this point, that stuff's somewhat irrelevant. I mean, you're focused on the game. So there are some critical elements here. 92nd minute, there's one team that's desperate. If they don't score a goal, they don't get to go to overtime and have a chance of playing in the final. Right? If New England wins, they go to the final. Fitness. It's a 92nd minute. Right? Fitness is really critical at this point, and being able to be focused because you're physically fit. Concentration, and to be aware of everything that's going on around you, and specifically what it is that you have to be concerned with. So there are a number of these things, and all of them come together, along with all of the laws and how you apply them with offside in this one play. And so we'll let you play it, and we can talk about it a little bit.